Okay, one more young Indian, a happy smiling face for the Voice of the Young series. So good to see all these young people. Hello, everyone. I'm back with Pranjal Ghate now. Let's listen to him. Over to you, Pranjal.
Namaste, sir. My name is Pranjal Ghate. I'm from Mangalore, Karnataka. It's a small coastal city in the western coast of southern India. It's on the border with Kerala. Um, Thank you, sir, first of all, for giving this opportunity. After you reached out to me, I watched some of your videos, past recordings, to get a perspective on how this is going to go. And it was really interesting to learn about different careers that exist within this space of economics and related subjects. And I found some very interesting topics getting discussed by fellow, I guess, South Asians or Desi Log who are in different parts of the world doing different endeavors. It kind of opened my eyes into what are the possibilities, and I'm here as well today to share my bit of experience. So maybe it can give somebody some perspective going forward if they're interested. So my journey with economics began in 12th grade, where I had economics as a part of my curriculum in Karnataka. So I went to a state syllabus, went through the state syllabus education in Karnataka, and having gone through economics as a subject in the commerce stream, I was really interested in learning more about it. Um, it was at the time when my family was also planning for my undergraduate or bachelor's education, and they told me to apply for colleges abroad. So it helped the fact that I had some family abroad, and they were kind of guiding me on how to go about the application. In fact, I have an eldest sister who went into economics at a liberal arts college in the States. She was 4 years older to me. And that kind of got me into also applying for economics related programs. Um, so lo and behold, in a year, I found myself getting admitted into about 5 universities out of the 10 universities I had applied to. And one of them had even offered to give me a full tuition scholarship. So this was the scholarship called the Levy Economics Scholarship from a small college called Bard College. This is in upstate New York. And that would have been a fantastic offer for me. It was an offer too good to be refused. In total, it was a scholarship about 200,000 USD for 4 years. All of it would be going into education. And I felt, okay, this is a fantastic opportunity to learn economics at a good institute where the costs are completely covered by the college. So I felt I was lucky enough to get this opportunity, and I pursued economics with more of a commitment after this. Obviously, the scholarship entailed certain contractual agreements. I had to maintain a particular GPA. I had to attend I had to show some academic rigor that was not expected out of maybe other students. But I was more than happy to get involved. So I went to pursue my bachelor's education in economics from Bard College. This is a small liberal arts college in upstate
Let me
New York.
just interrupt for a moment to say
Yeah,
most
yeah,
people won't know the name Bard College.
yeah,
Bard is a very good small college in the US. There are people outside the US know these big names, top universities and all. But uh, side by side, there are these very small liberal arts colleges. Most of them are, unfortunately, in very cold parts of the country. And
absolutely.
upstate New York means it's freezing most of the time, but the education is top rated. And the big advantage of these colleges is that the ratio of teachers to students is very high. And you don't get the huge classes that you get in top universities like Harvard, Econ 101, maybe 200 students. In these small colleges, it's very personal, very motivating, very dedicated. So you really get a very good education. I just wanted to say this because the name Bard perhaps doesn't mean much to people who have never heard of it. Okay, so you did go to a very good place. That's what I can say. All right, sorry to interrupt, but I have to say this for the sake of the viewers. Okay, let's go ahead.
Yes. So, I mean, I was lucky enough to get this opportunity to pursue this education. And as you said, Bard was one of those places where the average class size was maybe 15, as opposed to it being in the hundreds in the national universities. So I did have that privilege where we got a lot of attention from the profs, and we could spend more time with the professors just because of these numbers. And that got me really interested in the academic side of economics, especially in the third and fourth year of my undergraduate studies. So in the fourth year of my undergraduate studies, we have to do something called a senior project. This is like a necessary condition to graduate from one of our programs. And this senior project is almost like a thesis that you would write in a graduate program, where you work with the professor for a considerable amount of time, about 8 months or 9 months will be your academic advisor. And you hopefully try to get a paper published with them or write something that is of meaning in the topic of interest. So this got me really interested in the academic side of research and how research is done in general. And I got to spend a lot of time with my professor, who recommended to me that I should be pursuing a graduate education in economics after my undergrad. Since I had shown interest and some passion, he opinionated that I was a good fit and a good candidate for a graduate program. So this was at this time at Bard. In my fourth year, I looked into the master's level programs and the PhD programs all across, and I really was gearing myself up to go for a postgraduate education in economics. But then at this time, I had a small change in plans because this was the fourth year in New York. I was planning to apply for master's programs, and maybe I was planning to stay in the US, work for a year, and then continue my application process to these graduate programs. But then my father was diagnosed to be terminally ill back home, which was a major problem within my family. As the only son, I had to be responsible to an extent. My mother was finding it hard to take care of my father. And it was unfortunate that he was bedridden for a considerable amount of time. And I had to decide to forego my plans for my academic progress or career progress and attend to my family matters at the time of my graduation in the fourth year. So I left the US. I went back home to India as the doctors had, the doctor's prognosis was that my father would probably live for 6 months at max. So I decided I'm going to dedicate the whole 6 months to being with my father. So that was the decision I had taken upon during graduation in the US. I went back home, and it was such a very pleasant moment to be back home. I mean, for the personal side of life, and I was really glad that I chose to take that decision because I realized the career I can somehow gain back the years I might lose in the respect of my career, but the memories and the time that I spend with my father are very much short lived, and it will be cherished throughout my life. But the surprisingly, my father's condition started getting a bit better and better, and he started recovering after I had gone back home. So we realized that my father would now survive longer, and the doctor also had to. He kind of contradicted his own prognosis before, and he was surprised to see my father's recovery. So I had to now come think about my career prospects and think about what am I going to do now that I've gone back to India with this kind of an academic exposure. So this was the time I started again applying for my master's uh, programs abroad. And surprisingly, my mother had told me that to apply for a particular all India recruitment examination, where the requirement was a bachelor's in economics. This was the recruitment done by Ministry of Shipping in India, and for a post called Assistant Director of Research. So because I was exposed to all these things in the West, I was not very keen on working in the government sector in India because I was more interested in pursuing, let's say, more of a theoretical academic degree, or let's say some kind of a professional career in the West, in New York or Chicago or Boston or one of these places, because I thought I had seen all these things. I had gotten a degree, so it made sense for me to like get a career outcome in the West. So I was not very keen on getting back into the bandwagon of the Indian workforce and the work culture. But then I had just applied half-heartedly, and surprisingly, I was shortlisted for an examination. So without much preparation, I went for the examination. I was doing it more to please my mother, because my mother kind of wanted me to stay back in India at this point, whereas inside I wanted to be outside in the West. And my father's situation was the same. So I felt, okay, let me give it a try. Something told me, okay, give it a try. So I just went into the exam without much preparation. Like I was basically read the syllabus the day before of the exam, and I just walked in. And I was surprised to see the number of applicants that showed up for a single vacant position. That's when I realized I had not been exposed to the whole government job, like the craze around government jobs, that I had seen people come from all around India just to write this exam. And I was so intimidated. I felt, okay, I'm not at all prepared for this. This is a whole nother system I'm not aware of. And I was certain that I would not get finalized, but to my surprise, I came out to be the first in the exam. So they called me for an interview now. So the interview stage, they called the top three candidates who appeared in the exam. And even in the interview, I was the youngest person. I was 21 years old. The others were about 28, 29. I think there's an age limit of 32 until which you can apply for these jobs. But the interview panel, which was like about 8 people, a couple of them were IAS officers and senior bureaucrats, they really liked my profile, that I had studied abroad in my undergraduate days and come back home for a family reason. And I had expressed to them very candidly during the interview that my mother really wants me to stay here because she finds it easier if I stay back home. And I also felt a part of me wants to stay here, but this would give me an opportunity if I get a government job in India. And I guess that sealed the deal. Like they chose me for this post. So then I got to be the assistant director of research at a major port in India. This was recruitment done by Ministry of Shipping, but they basically post you in different major ports. So in India, we have about 12 major ports. And I was working at New Mangalore Port in the state of Karnataka. So this is one of the major ports under the Ministry of Shipping. And I was placed in the planning and research division as assistant director of research. So this was my first experience into the work life, but it was a very different environment to my undergrad. I was studying in upstate New York, and then I was placed in a government setup which was very archaic in so many ways. The culture, the people, like there were very less young millennials in the workforce. It were mostly like the 1960s, 70s recruits who were closer to, maybe 80s recruits who were closer to their retirement, not 70s or 60s, it's the 80s and 90s. They were like closer to their retirements. But suddenly I was in a class one officer level position. So this is the funniest thing. In India, they have these examinations where you can directly come to a class one officer position or class two officer level, management level positions, where you get to manage people at the age of 21. Like you're starting your career as a manager, which is like a very different concept. I think it's mostly the British concept that has been running in India. And I got to be part of a system like that. And I spent about 4 years, 3 years, 8 months working in this position and gained a significant amount of experience. The chairman of the port really liked me. When working with them, and he kind of took me under his wing. So I really got to understand how the deep bureaucratic dynamics take place, how the central government takes control, how do you deal with local governments, how do the state governments function. I got to basically like an understanding of the whole bureaucratic landscape of the Indian government system, and it was a very enriching experience. But after I spent about 3 years here, I felt, even though my title was assistant director of research, I was basically thrown into all kinds of jobs. And I was so young and energetic, I would say, yes, I'll take it on and I would do the work. So because I'm still in the phase of figuring out what is it that I want to do for a longer stretch of my life. So I felt doing a bit of everything is probably helpful. But after 3 years, I felt my learning has kind of slowed down. So I started thinking whether it is the right place for me to just continue this for a longer time, because that's the usual thing to do. Like people who get permanent government jobs, I guess they like to stick around, and that kind of gives you a stability, and um, you kind of have a stable outlook for your next 5 years or 10 years of your life. So it is an attractive element to have stability in your career. But then I think I wanted something more, and I started this discussion back home, and it was beautiful time overall because there was COVID at one end where the whole world was going through challenges, and I got to spend this time with my family. We all got together to be very close with each other. But at the same time, I was working for the government of India. It was really like I was really satisfied internally, but I was not really satisfied with the pay and the promotion structures, the incentives. These I felt with the Indian government salary, I will never be able to do things abroad again. Like to take a flight to go to the US would cost me like my 3 months salary. Like that's how the pay. Unfortunately, the pay kind of works when you work in India. Even though this is a government job in a class one level, you're getting paid almost 1 lakh rupees per month. It doesn't turn out to be much, like when you convert it into dollars and you try to live an international life, so to say. So I started discussing with my family whether it is something, whether it'd be nice for me to go out again, to go back to the West to pursue my master's. There are some unfinished dreams. Can I do that? And there was a little bit of discussion, but at the same time, my father again started having relapses. He was bedridden the whole time. So for about 4.5 years, he was in a bedridden situation. We were taking care of him very closely, but he passed away, unfortunately, in October 2021. And that actually triggered another kind of sentiment in my mind when I felt, okay, like now that this chapter of my life is done, I will pursue my dreams, my career dreams. I will pursue a master's in economics and go forward. So this was after October 2021. I decided to look at some master's programs. I didn't want to go back to the States at this point because I knew that the master's programs in the States are, first of all, very scarce in economics, and they're very expensive. I felt I'll look at either Canada or the UK this time around. So I looked at 3 programs: University of Toronto, University of British Columbia, and Oxford. And I applied to 3 programs. This was all done in a very fast-paced manner. Like I decided in about a month. When my father passed away in October, I had the GRE score somehow. So in November, I decided I'm going to apply again. So I applied in the December cycle. And then I applied to only 3 programs at Oxford, at UBC, and U of T. And I felt if I don't get into it, I'll not go this time, maybe next year around. And to my surprise, I got into UBC, and I was happy to go to the master's program. I had heard very good things about the master's program from my undergraduate profs, and I was looking forward to doing a master's in economics because I felt a master's in econ would, give us a perspective on whether PhD is actually for you. Because usually many people have this question whether PhD is a long-term commitment, 6 to 7 year commitment in North America, and obviously it's a significant amount of time out of the workforce. And if you don't really have the taste for it, it's not for you. So I wanted to test myself and get myself back in the field because I'd also lost touch, like being in the working environment, you kind of lose the academic side of economics. So I came back into this master's program to get myself refreshed and re-prepped, and also to see for myself whether PhD is the thing for me, really. So I pursued this master's at UBC. It was a 1 year master's. It's one of those accelerated master's programs where they condense a lot of material. So it is bound to be hard. It's bound to be very math-based, statistics-based. That was also another reason I had chosen the program at UBC, is because I had heard good things about the mathematical rigor they put into their research. And I had gotten my undergraduate education in a liberal arts college. So we are usually much more focused on the humanities side of economics compared to the modeling, engineering, mathematical side. So I felt I had a bit of an insecurity that, I might not know the intricacies of the statistical models well enough to say that, okay, I know something. So I felt maybe a master's in a whole different environment, like a very math, stat, sciencey based economics might help me get over my insecurity of
Okay,
not being.
let me stop you there to tell
Yeah.
people about UBC. Again,
Yeah.
not many people outside the econ field may have heard
Yeah.
its name. But UBC
Okay.
is actually a top university for econ. The program is very good. They have very high powered professors, especially in the things you're talking about, mathematics and statistics. And it's, people think Canada, McGill, and all that, that's the East Coast. But this is the West Coast. And forget the West Coast. It is actually one of the top programs in the world. UBC is very good. So you have managed to sneak into two unknown but very good colleges. When you go around telling people I went to Bard College and UBC, they may think, oh my God, this guy is a loser. Where did he? But actually, it is uh, part of the top college systems. UBC is very good. So I just want to say congratulations that you
Thank
were
you.
able to do it in 1 year after being a government officer for 4 years almost.
Yeah.
That is actually quite a remarkable feat to be able to jump back into a rigorous program like they have over there. I don't know if I can hack it at this age. That
Yeah.
program. All right, so
Yeah.
continue.
It was a very challenging experience, but it's one of those. I mean, it kind of satisfied some deep desire for some rigorous teaching when it comes to stats, mathematical statistics. We had a Russian professor, like, who was fantastic. Like, the way he would conduct his classes, he would walk into the class without any notes. Everything is in his like understanding. So you ask any question, like, he will start with some basic premise and deriving it. It's almost like communication for him, like
Yeah,
mathematics and stats. That's the kind of level I was exposed to. That's when I saw,
that's
okay,
good.
there's this world of maths and stats which I was probably not aware of before. And it's a very fascinating field. I would love, I mean, if to get more time in my life, or I would try to push people into that direction, because I think it's a beautiful place to be academically. But anyways, having said that, I got the master's experience at UBC, and so I had come to this master's program on a sabbatical. So the good part about being in the government job in India is that you can take education leaves and sabbaticals to upskill yourself. So I took an education leave back at my parent organization, and I could have either gone for the paid sabbatical or an unpaid sabbatical, and I chose the unpaid sabbatical path because the paid sabbatical would have had me to get into a contract to write a bond with the parent organization that I'll have to come back and work for 3 years, if not pay a particular sum in terms of like a penalty. I didn't want to go through the financial hurdle, so I decided I'm gonna um, just come on unpaid sabbatical. It also helped me psychologically because of the economy around the world is economies around the world are not so great in the sense for a job market aspirant, and I felt having a backup back home, that to a government job, kind of gives me a psychological safety net, and it did. So I came on an education leave, and while I was finishing the program, during July or August last year, I started thinking, okay, what's next for me? Like, I'm going to have to decide. I had started applying for some jobs in Canada as well. I was also hoping to see if I can get some work opportunities over here in Canada. And but I was unsure because I didn't want to let go of the government job back home. So I decided I was gonna go back home to India and then do my because the good thing about doing a master's in Canada is that they give you an open work permit for about a year, so you can apply for any jobs in the year from wherever you are. So I went back home. I started applying for jobs, and I was lucky enough to crack into an economist position in the government of Ontario in Toronto. So this is the provincial government role in the Ministry of Housing, economist role. I felt, okay, this is something new and this is a change from my previous government experience in India. So I felt this can open my eyes a bit more. I think it can give me the kind of challenges that I was hoping for, and I would love to work in a city like Toronto. I always associated Toronto with parts of New York, and there was like a there's a vibe when you walk in the financial district of Toronto or New York that you kind of, I felt that I wanted that at least for some time in my younger days of exploration, just to give me some perspectives. And I decided to quit my job back home in the government of India, and then I switched to the job here in the government of Ontario as an economist. Speaking about what I'm doing now, I mean, I don't know how many of you are aware. People who are associated with Canada are definitely aware that there is a housing crisis in this country. The housing prices, both in the rental market and the ownership market, it's very very high compared to its historic levels, and there's a huge supply shortage issue when it comes to housing supply. So the government at all three levels, federal level, provincial level, and at the local level, they're trying various things to address this issue. And I'm part of the provincial team trying to address this issue. And I'm really enjoying the work right now. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for such an honest and actually heartwarming, a young son looking after his father. That's something.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is your advice to young people? Since, you are a little bit different in your academic path than most of the people who would be seeing this, what can they learn from you?
I think the best thing that they can learn is as long as obviously the finances of their families and their individual circumstances allow them. I think the thing to do, at least the thing that I follow to do, is to pursue a whole lot of things. I think until 30 years of age, I believe we have to get exposed to many different things and then decide for the longer phase of our lives. That is maybe from 30 to 50 or 30 to 40. None of these are strict rules, but I feel it gives you a holistic perspective on what's happening around the world. Then you can kind of base yourself from this perspective, learn from the lessons that you learned, and then progress more consciously. That's, I think, the main message. I tell this mainly because I've noticed many people have this hidden thoughts, or the grass is greener on the other side, or what it is to work in the US, what it is to work in the West, what it is to work in India. Like, I've seen people, Indians who are in the West, who are working here, who are constantly fantasizing about working back home in India and trying for a very good opportunity, like where they can make, let's say, the similar amount of money or save similar amount of money. They have the fantasy to work for India and towards a cause and whatnot. They want to get connected. There is a desire for that. So I've seen such people. I've seen people back home in India who are wondering, oh, what it is to work in the West and be outside, do this. So I've seen this kind of, and I feel like I have had both of these thoughts in me. So I've seen myself wondering, oh, what it is to work for India, like, and being very passionate about it, but also being sometimes frustrated with like how slow some of the things are, or like how some of the problems are such historic baggages. It's so hard to change and all that. Like, having gone through that, and I also had a thought about, okay, what it is to work in the West. And we see, I mean, I got into economics with this kind of fundamental question of why are some countries so developed and why are some countries not so developed. So these were some of the basic, I think, developmental econ questions that got me into economics in the first place. So I think it's like a lifelong journey to figure out and analyze and understand how certain cultures kind of determine how the country has progressed, or how the historical factors have influenced its present state. Both seeing it in India, seeing it in the West, I think helps you with an enriching experience as a person. But I think the main message is to explore a lot of things. I feel we shouldn't be curtailing ourselves for the idea of settling down somewhere or to please society, this, that. Like, I feel they are important. I definitely think stability, it's a very attractive thing. I say this mainly because when I was trying to get away from my permanent job back home in the government of India, many people around me were telling me, why are you doing this? Why? Like, I would not leave the government job in India because it's so hard to get into, and XYZ. So that had I was kind of pressured psychologically to thinking that I should not leave a government job. But I, in the end, decided to go with my heart. And now I'm in a new government setup in the country of Canada. and it's given me a whole new experience of how things are done, how this culture works differently.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't have had it otherwise. Like, there would never be a scenario where I can have it all. So you have to somehow sometimes let go of something to gain something. So I always encourage people to go after their dreams, because even if we fail, at least we tried. We'll be
Okay.
happy with that thought. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. That's good advice. Anything else you want to add here?
Yes, broadly speaking, I think if people are definitely are at this viewing at this point, like there's a big question about, I think, whether to pursue PhD and academia as a career. I mean, it's a question that many people face who do postgraduate education in economics, because economics tends to be a very theoretical subject when you pursue it after the undergraduate level. So the one thing that I have noticed is, and I've, even after listening to some of your videos, like when you research, I think you had some guy from a PhD student from U Chicago who's pursuing finance. Like
Yes.
when I listened to his video, I realized there's so many people now pursuing these kind of PhDs and the higher level education. So the market does seem to be kind of saturated. I'm hearing a lot of PhD students complaining about job market placement issues, or not finding a stable career path after having gone through the rigorous 6-7 year commitment. So that is a significant question, and I think after the master's program, I've kind of decided not to pursue a PhD. And it's all, I just want people to know that it's also fine to not pursue a PhD. Like maybe I might change my mind after 3 years down the line, but presently I do not see a utility in like this marginal utility gain is not that high of making going into PhD. In a country like Canada, a master's in economics is, especially from a university like UBC or U of T, is as good. You can reach to whatever career prospects you want to. It doesn't hinder you. But if you want to be a professor really dedicated to the academic side of economics, if you truly know that's your only calling, I think then I would encourage you to go towards PhD. But doing PhD for the sake of career prospects or name and fame might not be the best motive at this point, is what I felt looking at the environment. So that's
Okay.
another
All right,
take.
great. All right, thank you, Pranjal. I think we should end it here. We may
Yeah.
catch up with you 1 year from now to see how you're doing. In
Yeah.
the meantime, let's say bye to the viewers, and
Yeah.
I'll be back with another young person or an expert pretty soon. Till then, bye, everybody.
Yeah. See you guys. Thank you.